Welcome to the Energy and Hours podcast, formerly called the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill Wright, author of Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, and creator of the Time Magic Seasonal Planner. On this podcast, we talk about time and energy management tips that we can use to flow through our day in a way that feels more aligned. This podcast is for people who are living less traditional, non-linear kind of lives. It's for the moms who are home with the babies or homeschooling their kids. It's for those people who are working night shifts or part-time hours. It's for entrepreneurs and creatives and neurotypical people who just feel left out of traditional time management advice. We focus a lot on how to use cyclical energy, seasonal cycles. We talk about productivity. We talk about self-care. We talk about rest. It all comes together in what I like to say is time magic. And if you tune into these episodes week after week, you're going to get a half an hour punch of tools, tips, and strategy advice for you to go and implement right away in your day to make your life feel a little bit more like you and a little bit less stressful.
I'm re-airing an episode today from season 3 when this podcast was called Grow Like a Mother. Now that we are Energy and Hours, this episode I did with Lauren Glynn is even more impactful. We're talking tools to save you time in your business, how to shore up your systems, all things productivity. So if you are interested in that and you are a business owner, this is the episode for you. Dive right in and enjoy Lauren, and also check out my episode on her podcast. I will link that in the show notes as well.
Welcome to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill, and I'm here with Lauren today. Lauren's a systems tech and operations consultant for established female small business owners like us who want to work fewer hours like us and make more money without the chaos and overwhelm. Again, just like us. Drawing from her extensive experience coaching and consulting for Fortune 500 companies like Apple, Whole Foods, and Pfizer, as well as for federal government agencies, Lauren helps teams and individuals build scalable systems for increased profit margins and efficiency, but without compromising quality. And I feel like that's the key there. Lauren empowers her clients to reduce their working hours, increase their revenue, and achieve better work-life balance, which sounds like check, 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 all the things I want. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
It's so fun to talk to someone who's got this systems brain to help us entrepreneurs kind of like come back down to earth a little bit. Like, how did you get into this type of thing? Have you always been really good at just narrowing down to what's important?
So it's funny, I started my life as a lighting designer for theater, realized I did not like the hours of theater or the brown nosing that is required for theater, moved into being a business analyst, moved into being actually a scrum master, they call it in software development world, and then into being an agile coach, which is basically a coach for a couple of usually software development, but sometimes marketing, sometimes, other teams. And so a lot of my job history and a lot of the work that I've done with these larger organizations is finding efficiencies. How do we work better together as a team? How do we build systems that use the least amount of resources in the shortest amount of time? And I took that into building my own business because when I left the corporate world and the federal world in 2018, I was like, 2021. I was like, what can I do? How can I help these entrepreneurs? And I started off as a coach and actually helping leaders, and realized that there was really a need for people to understand the technology behind their business and not to feel overwhelmed by it. Because I know a lot of people, women especially, I find, feel really intimidated by technology and really don't know where to start, and they feel like they're going to break something and they don't want to make a mistake. And so I've recognized that there are a lot of entrepreneurs that just need that support of figuring out, what are the systems that I need? What are the processes that I need? How can I get this done in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of money invested and still make it efficient and a good experience for my clients? So that was what really inspired me to start helping entrepreneurs figure all this out for themselves.
That's so needed. Do you ever get clients like me who are like, there are too many apps and softwares and services that we need to like pare down rather than trying to figure out like, what do we need? It's like, what do we not need?
Yes, yes, because people see the shiny new object and they're like, I need this new thing and I need this other app and I saw an ad for this one, so I'm going to try this one. And suddenly you have like 20 of them and some of them overlap, but they don't really talk to each other and you're not really sure. So that is part of what I help my clients figure out is what do you need, but also what do you not need? What can we, pare down?
And I bet it's super personalized. Like if I was to say, what are like the top things that you recommend that all entrepreneurs put in, would you have like always this, or is it depending on the person, depending on the business? How does that go?
So it is really person and business and preference dependent, but there are three things that I would say, for actually if we want to talk specific tools, I have three specific tools I can recommend, but also just three things in general for, being focused and making sure that you're working in your business and on your business instead of in your business all the time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so the three tools I recommend is an automation tool. So I use Zapier for that. Some sort of CRM where you can have people enter their information through your website, or you can enter it manually so you can track who's your leads, what's going on with that, and then some sort of email management system. Now, I don't know if your listeners are more established or beginners, but by the time that they are a little bit more established, they'll usually have some form of each one of these, or at least the CRM and the email management system. But Zapier is what sort of connects them all to each other and sort of automates everything. So it
Mm,
makes it a lot easier for the systems to talk to each other. So you're not doing double work of entering things twice and tracking things and saying, oh, this person bought from me, so I want to make sure that I'm not sending them the sales emails for the same thing that they've already bought from me, tracking things like that.
right. Oh my gosh, yeah. So needed. I think that when I first encountered Zapier, I was like, oh, this will talk to like Flowdesk can talk to Kajabi, can talk like this is fantastic, right? Yeah.
Yes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing what it's like, what it's capable of doing and making it easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm all in for making things as easy as we can. And I know
Yes.
that like most of us just don't have time to do extra things. And so I love when we were first chatting, you were suggesting that we talk about some strategies for like getting more done in less time. Can we dive into some of
Yes.
those?
Yes, sure. So I have three strategies for that as well. The first one is to prioritize and focus. What are the important things that you should be working on? Understanding what's actually bringing business in to your company is the most important thing. Are those social media posts really bringing business in? Are, doing a TikTok dance actually bringing paying clients to your business? I'm going to guess probably not for most of you. It might be getting you followers, but are those followers actually buying from you and paying you money for things? Probably not. So, do you need to be focusing on that? So, the first step is to really understand what those things are and then focus more on those things that are actually bringing business to your company.
Okay, quick question about that actually before we go to the next one. I've heard this before, and it was a hard truth to acknowledge, like, oh God, that's where I spend a lot of my time because people tell me that that's like you have to do what the algorithm says, like not
Mm-hmm.
true. But like, and maybe this is just a whole other conversation, but my mind immediately goes to like, but where are my clients going to come from? Even though they're not already coming from Instagram, like you just identified, but that fear that comes up, like, is that common?
It is because people see other people doing it. They see other people spending all this time on TikTok and Instagram and creating these reels and getting all these followers. So it's really common for people to see that and think, well, that's what I should be doing because that's what they're doing. But what I would challenge you to do is, and you already kind of acknowledged it a little bit, is take a hard look at your business. Are you actually getting paying clients from Instagram, from TikTok, wherever you're spending all of that time on social media?
Yeah. So
So it's really you really have to understand your business. And that's part of the reason why having a CRM tool is important because it can help you track that information. Here's where I got this client from. Here's where I got this client from. Oh, 80% of my clients come from referrals. Maybe I should be doing more networking instead of spending all this time on Instagram. So it's having the data and then really prioritizing what the data is telling you should be focusing on.
yeah, that's really smart. Okay, hit me with the next one. New
Okay,
strategies.
next one is we already touched on this a little bit, but streamline and automate.
Ugh.
So streamline down your systems, make sure you're only using what you need, and then automate as much as possible. You look into Zapier, look into what automations your system already offers. I used Dubsado for my CRM, and it has a lot of automations already built in. So figure out where you can save that time by maybe investing a little bit upfront, but saving time in the back end because now it's automated for every client instead of building it and redoing it and reinventing the wheel every time you have a new client that you have to maybe onboard, for example.
Right. So I'm just putting myself in the listener's shoes, thinking like, okay, I like that idea of like things not having, not having to touch it every time. But can you give us some examples of things that you can automate? Like, what are
Yeah.
these things?
So there are several, lots of things that you can automate. One example I would give is we already kind of touched on it a little bit of, okay, someone bought from me. I want my email system to know that they have already purchased this thing from me and not send them any more sales emails about it whenever I send out a sales email. So I have a Zap set up, is what Zapier calls them. I have a Zap set up that when someone becomes a project in Dubsado instead of a lead, then that information is sent over to MailerLite, which is my email system, and it marks that name as they've already purchased from this, they've already purchased this product. And so when I go and send that email, that sales email next time, I can exclude that group of people so that I'm not sending them sales emails. So that's all automated in the back end. It's all set up to do that automatically. Another example would be onboarding a new client. If you're doing very similar services over and over again, even if they're somewhat different, you can set up standard proposals, standard contracts, questionnaires, so that they're all automated when your client signs on with you. So, for example, in Dubsado, it has a trigger for when the contract is signed, what happens next. So when the contract is signed, it automatically sends them an invoice. It automatically sends reminders for the invoice when the invoice is not paid. It can automatically schedule or send them a request to schedule their first session or however many additional sessions they might need if you're a coach, for example. It can send them your onboarding questionnaire of, okay, now that we've decided to work together, what other information do I need? So all of that can be done automatically as soon as that client submits that signed contract. And you don't have to do any of it. So it's really easy to set it up at the beginning and then save yourself all that time in the back end. And it can even send reminders. Hey, you haven't filled out this questionnaire yet. Your meeting is coming up. You need to fill that out. So you can have all of that automated in the back end and kind of take that mental load off your plate so you don't have to think about it all the time and then follow up with that, your client and keep track of everything. It can also automate giving them access to systems. So I use Slack to talk to my contacts, to talk to my customers. And I have an automation set up through Zapier and Dubsado to automatically add them into Slack, send them an email, say, hey, you have access to Slack now. Here's how you use it. Send them a tutorial video. It's all automated as soon as they sign that contract. So it can really take a ton of things off your plate and not have to constantly be thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, I love that because the mental load is such a like an invisible load, but sometimes if you're like me, you put everything in your brain in a brain dump on a list. And so it's visible and it's irritating if you don't get to it. So I love that those things just never even need to end up on a list anywhere. They're just taken care
Exactly.
of. That's
Yep.
fantastic. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Third strategy.
Okay. The third and probably the most important is to set boundaries for yourself and manage your energy. Understand what drains you of energy and what powers you up. If you need to go to the gym every morning to really get pumped up for the day, if you need to make sure that you have a lunch break, a dedicated lunch break at the same time every day, maybe you're a person who works better in the morning and then late at night. And so you kind of give yourself space in the afternoons to kind of recharge a little bit. Figure out what works for you and then stick to those boundaries. Figure out what helps you be most productive, work best, and when you work the best, and then create those boundaries around you. If you're working from home and you have kids or other people living with you, your partner maybe, be firm with your boundary. Say, hey, I know I'm home, but I'm working. I am in my, workspace. I am focused. Maybe I have headphones on, but this is my boundary. This is what I need to do. And conversely, set boundaries with your clients. Make sure that they understand when you're reachable, how to reach you, and that they don't abuse the ability to reach you. You are really setting that boundary of if you're giving out your phone number or you called me or texted me after hours, you can make that decision. Is this really an emergency? Do I need to respond right now? But generally, you should be enforcing that. No, I'm not working right now. These are outside of my working hours. It can wait until the next time that I'm actually sitting at my desk working. So it's really important that you're setting those boundaries and then managing your own energy, because as I have heard said many times before, you can't pour from an empty cup. If there's nothing left to give, then you have nothing left. And so you have to really make sure that you are allowing yourself to recharge, managing your energy, and managing those boundaries.
That's so fantastic. That touches on so many things that I teach on too, specifically like figuring out your best working times, when you need rest, what gives you energy. Like figure it out for yourself, because everyone's going to have different ideas and you can get inspired by somebody else's list, but you need to have your own list. And it's so funny because I'm actually recording in my laundry room right now, because this is my new office, because I had an office in the middle of the house and my boyfriend would come. He works from home and so do I. He would come up for lunch and he wouldn't even talk to me. He would leave me alone, but I could recognize that distraction of knowing someone is walking really threw off my day, and I needed a closed door, and we happened to have a space. So I was just like, you know what? Screw that. I don't care if nobody else has an office in the laundry room. This is what's going to work for me. And so
Right.
here I am, and it's beautiful. I love doing this. So
yeah, and
yeah.
you've removed that mental load of being aware. Right before we started recording, I closed the blinds because people driving by, people walking by, kids playing, like that's distracting to me. So I had to, even though I like the light, I had to close the blinds to make sure that I could really focus on our conversation.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, so good. Lauren, I want to dive into sort of a client story that you said that you could share with us surrounding like how you provide your clients with a clear roadmap that helps them break free from the daily grind stuff and really focus on the big picture vision for their business. Can you take us into that?
Sure. So one of my current clients, Yvette, she is an HR strategist, and she started her business because she didn't like working for other people. One of the reasons that many of us can relate to, I'm sure. And, she didn't really want a team. She didn't really want to be beholden to anyone. She wants to go in and help companies be better at their people management, better at their people strategy. She's actually located in Canada, just like you.
Oh, cool.
Yes. And so I started working with her. And when we started working together, a lot of her business was what she calls fractional HR, where she goes in and acts as sort of a third party HR person for companies that aren't big enough to have their own full-time HR person, but they still need HR support. And what ends up happening is they will call her up and say, we have an employee situation that we need to talk to you about, and we need you on the phone. And so right before our session, she was talking to them on the phone for about 2 hours. And she was like, and we met afterwards, and she was like, yeah, it was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. I made like $300 for just 2 hours of work. And I was like, well, that's great. But what could you have been doing instead that would have made you more money? And she took a step back and she was like, well, there's this really big client that I want to go after for about 20 grand. And I was like, so instead of spending 2 hours with this client, you could have been spending 2 hours strategizing on how you were going to land this bigger client. And she was like, well, I guess I never really thought of it that way. So we've worked together to evolve her business to figure out, okay, maybe I can offload some of this more one-on-one hand-holding type HR so that I can spend some time thinking about and strategizing how I want to get these bigger clients. And we actually had a conversation today in our session where she was saying, my big dream is to go into a big multinational company and help them with their HR, go in, fix everything and leave. That's what she really likes doing. Work with a client for 6 months, project based, figure out what's going on with them, and then get out. And I go, okay, so what's the step right before working with that multinational company? And she's like, well, I have to really figure out my services. And I was like, no, what is the actual step? If you're thinking about working with this big multinational company, what's the step right before that? And she really had a hard time naming it. And so we talked through it and we figured it out together, but it wasn't something that came naturally to her. She wanted to think the next step ahead, but instead through coaching with me, we really thought through, okay, if this is where you want to get to, what's the step right before that? And then how do you get to that step? And how do you get to the step before that? So it's really breaking down your goal backwards and talking through with someone who understands sort of what it is that you're trying to do. And so she was like, at the end of our session, she was amazed. She was like, we just had this breakthrough. Like, I cannot even believe that, I'm understanding and now I'm realizing. And I was like, the other thing you need to figure out is, do you want to keep doing this fractional HR, with these smaller clients that requires you to have a team now? Because if you're not going to do it, you're going to have to pay someone. And she has some people that she can do that with. And I was like, but it's still kind of taking you away from the things that you really want to be doing. So you just really need to think that through. Is that really worth your time and energy? And, you got to pay the bills. So you have to balance that of, am I at a point where I can start saying no to these things and start saying yes to the bigger things, or do I still have some development to do and things like that? So it was a really, powerful conversation with her. And it's been going on for several weeks now of figuring out, what does she really want with her business? Where does she want to end up? What does she want it to look like?
Yeah.
So it's been really great working with her.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about having a coach that can guide you through like the goal setting process in a way that somehow we need that outside perspective. I know that for me, when I was trying to get my book published last fall, I had a coach named Evie, and she was like beyond helpful and supportive in like, how are you going to get this done? Like, what are the steps? What's your goal? How are you going to get there? What are the actions you need to take? And really held me accountable to getting it done. And then all of a sudden the book's in the world. And then all of a sudden your client's an HR specialist in the multinationals, right? Like, it's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, like, people think, oh, I'm a coach, I should be able to do this for myself. Like, I don't need a coach because I'm also a coach. But it's very different having an outside person keeping you accountable and to talk through these things and, than to try to do it yourself. Like, I am a coach and I am not good at setting my own goals, and I am not good at like following my own advice. So it's always so important, even if you're a coach yourself, to have someone outside to help you talk through these things.
Yeah, I know. If I can't even tell you how many coaches I've had and still have, and for different things, right? You find someone who's really good at the thing that you're not great at, and you get some help from them, and then you move on and you level up and you don't need them anymore, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good. So good. And speaking about leveling up in your business, if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm ready, I understand, but it can wait, or like, I don't have time yet, or it feels like too big of a task to start to systemize all my things. Like, I'm okay for the moment. Can we talk about like the hidden costs of not doing this early in your business? Because oftentimes in any sort of situation where there's a coaching element or a learning curve or some growth edge of some kind, people don't think about, or they discount the cost of inaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So not having systems in your business can really add up cost wise. You may be missing out on customers, leads might be falling through the cracks that you're not following up with and not, circling back on. If they said, hey, follow up with me in 6 months, how are you remembering to do that? How are you circling back to that? It's also would allow you, if you had more automated systems and you had more systems in general and processes, to potentially take on more clients. You could potentially handle, 5 instead of 3 because so much of the back end stuff is automated for you. One of the things that I automate in my business is actually session notes. So after I meet with someone, I upload the transcript into AI and say, create session notes for me. So that's like one less thing that I have to think about creating for my clients that really gives me a lot of free time back, because you can imagine sitting down and writing up session notes, how time consuming that is. And you have to listen back, or you have to look at your notes and figure out what you said and what you really meant. And so finding things like that that can give you time back will help you grow your business a whole lot faster, rather than trying to muddle through and figure it out on your own. And you're like, well, it's just one manual process here and one manual process there. Or, I don't have, like you said, I don't have time to sit down and figure out all of these processes. But that all adds up to be time away from your clients, time away from finding clients, time away from, working on that larger strategy of your business and figuring out, do you want to work with a multinational company? And then how do you get there? So you're really shortchanging yourself, not giving yourself that time back when it's so easy that you could figure it out how to, even just a small thing like automating talking between two systems. Well, maybe that's a small thing to me. Maybe that's not a small thing to everyone, but the time you can give yourself back on that, or the better client experience you can give yourself back on that, will pay back tenfold.
Yeah, and something that came up too that just maybe feels important to mention for the workaholic types like me, like it saves you time back with your family because sometimes we'll still do all the nitty-gritty stuff and the manual stuff and the strategic thinking, and we'll just work ourselves. We'll just create a bigger work day, which takes time away from our family and our leisure and our rest, which is probably the reason that we got into entrepreneurship in the first time. So just a reminder
Yes.
that it's like there's hidden costs everywhere, right? Like I know personally, I've heard of moms who are like their relationships are in trouble because they're too focused on the business and they don't spend the time, curating and nourishing that relationship with their spouse or their kids. And their kids are like, they don't even know their kids' friends' names anymore because it's like they're not invested in the things that they say are important to them because they're spending a
Yeah.
lot of inefficient time in the
Hmm.
business. So I love that you
Yeah.
solved that problem. If somebody was wanting to work with you or learn more about what you do, where do they find you online? Like how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I actually offer a free profit optimization kickstart session for anyone who wants to learn more about how to systemize, how to operationalize their business a little bit better. Maybe you're thinking about hiring a VA and you're not really sure how to go around it. Maybe you want to reduce all the systems that you're using and you're not really sure which ones you should look at. So it's free, totally free, no obligation call so that you can kind of identify those bottlenecks, streamline your operations, and then together we'll create that customized plan so that you can boost your productivity and your profitability. So that is at laurenglynn.com/profit. And again, totally free. You don't have to pay any money for it. There's no obligation to buy anything. And it's your opportunity to kind of pick my brain about what your business is, how it's structured, and what we can do to make it work a little bit easier for you. Get you that time back to spend with your kids and maybe relearn your kids' names too.
Yeah, right. Yes. The kids, the dog, who knows who's who.
Yeah. Oh, there's a
Oh,
new animal here. Didn't even know their name.
that's so awesome. I'm going to make sure we have that link in the show notes because that's a really generous and valuable offering. And I hope people take advantage of it because to be able to sort of like ask the expert, as it were, that's how we learn. Like we were talking
Yep.
about, like find someone who knows the thing that you don't know a lot about, ask your questions, and then you can decide, do I DIY or is it like you talk about the done for you or what are the two sort of options that you talk about?
Yeah, so I offer done with you, where I guide you to actually make the implementation, or done for you, or I actually go in and just do it for you so you don't even have to think about it. Totally out of sight, out of mind. And I will add that no question is too small. I'm actually helping someone set up their lead magnet funnel generation tomorrow, where they were like, I'm not really sure how this works in Flowdesk. And I was like, well, we can sit down together and do it. So like I said, no question is too big or too small. If you want to revamp the whole business, if you just have a couple of small questions, whatever you want, I am here to help.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on with me today. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners did, and I appreciate you so much in the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.